All right, man.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah,
It's long,
finally here.
long way away from Argentina.
Yeah, it's been like almost a day for me. The whole trip.
You were on the ground in Buenos Aires
Yeah,
not too long ago.
yeah. I mean, I really enjoy Denver. It's my second time here. It's a lovely city, lovely weather as well. I'm a big fan of the cold weather.
Yeah, it's like ironically, it's like a lot warmer here than it was in New York City.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's great to be here. You get a lot of sunshine all the time.
How's New York now?
It's cold. I guess it's getting nicer, but it's been a pretty kind of cold spell. We had that huge blizzard, and then everything in New York City just gets hard. Yeah, it gets ugly and like sooty, and
Yeah.
so it hasn't melted yet. You're still cold.
Nice. All right, let's get it.
All right, let's do it.
All right, welcome back to a new episode of the Linkup, or maybe the Julians this time. It's good to have you, Julian, in this episode. It's great to be here to finally meet you in person. You joined recently LI.FI, and we are in the sunny state of Colorado, so it's great to be here. First of all, introduce yourself to the camera, to the ones that are listening to you.
Sure. Thanks. Well, first of all, thanks, Julian. It's great to be here. It's great to finally meet you in person. It's great to be at LI.FI. Yeah, I'm Julian Jacobson, kind of new kid on the block here at LI.FI. And so I've been, I guess, in blockchain for a long time, since I guess 2012. But then in electronic trading since maybe 2000. And it's just great to be here at LI.FI to kind of replay a lot of the things that I've kind of been involved with over the years. Yeah.
And nowadays, you are based in New York, but you're originally from here, from Colorado, right?
That's right. So I grew up mostly in Breckenridge, Colorado, which is just pretty close to here. It's over in the Rockies. Went to CU Boulder, super close to here. But I've been living in New York with my wife and two daughters. I've been there for 20 years. So we live on the Upper West Side, and so it's good to be back in Colorado.
It's good to have this conference in your home state, right?
It's killer. Yeah. Yeah, Colorado is near and dear, and I don't get back here nearly as much as I like to. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been back to Denver. So yeah, and ETH Denver is amazing.
Yeah, it's a great conference, a great city.
Yeah.
It's my second time here, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Yeah.
Denver is a great place to be, and if Denver is always it has always been like one of the main conferences of the year. Probably this year the attendance is a little bit lower than other years, but I still believe it's one of the main conferences, and it's great to be here. So nowadays you are based in New York, and why did you decide to move to New York, or why have you been living there for the last 20 years?
Right. Well, good question. I think my, like most things, I just follow my wife wherever she goes. But yeah, I think we were in Chicago for quite a long time. I went off and got a graduate degree at Indiana University, and by the time I was done, she had moved to New York City to be an executive in fashion. And so I came out and joined her, and I started working for, I guess, Lehman Brothers, which had purchased a company that I had worked for many years in Chicago. And so I was at Lehman for a while, and was there when the huge explosion happened with the financial crisis. And but yeah, been there working in electronic trading and blockchain for a long time, and the energy there is just incredible. We're kind of coming out of kind of a dark era. The Gensler days were really hard on people, who are focused on blockchain in New York City, but now the energy is just kind of, coming back with a vengeance. And so New York City is just exploding with, blockchain energy, creativity, a lot of people doing a lot of interesting stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having you out there. We'll have a good time and meet a lot of people next time you're in the city.
Yeah, of course. I believe New York City is actually the place where everything in crypto is happening right now. Most of these big companies have nowadays offices over there. Bunch of teams are building from New York, and it's a lovely city. I mean, crypto has been hiding for a while in New York, but nowadays I see meetups every single day, every single week in the city. And I also believe we are in a point where DeFi and TradFi are somehow merging, right? And I think New York is the place where all this is gonna happen. So I think it's great to be there. That's why I wanted to ask you, why do you think LI.FI hire you in New York, and what are your plans for LI.FI within the US? And yeah.
Right. Well, and it's really interesting working at LeFi because, I've never been at such a international organization, just the diversity of the where people are coming from, like, and everybody's dialing in from somewhere in the world. I mean, every continent. At all times, you just got people from. I mean, you're from Argentina, which is super amazing, and I guess the um, the company's Berlin based, but it's really global. And curiously, hasn't really landed in New York until now. I think there's just the time is now in blockchain and in New York and in this kind of cross pollination between blockchain and Wall Street. It's something I've been working on in my career for many years to a limited effect, working in, with centralized exchanges and with, tokenization platforms and doing different things, but having these regulatory headwinds that have been just kind of suffocating really, the creative effort. And now what we're seeing is, just this incredible uplift, where particularly with the Genius Act and now with Clarity kind of making its way through, you see the institutions have done a 180. So words that were kind of ugly words, crypto, 1, 2 years ago are now really important words. And you're hearing people at the highest levels of the biggest organizations saying them. And so for me, it really is, trying to find those, you know, ideal places where LeFi's infrastructure, which is remarkable technology, and where it's most appropriate and where it's most suitable to be deployed there, right? And so not just Wall Street. I think that there are obviously a lot of you know firms outside of the capital markets that need and want and use LeFi's technology. Um, but I think that there are opportunities in Wall Street uh, that are very timely, and that I'm very interested in kind of developing the strategy, talking with a lot of firms out there to determine how to best go about landing it. And I've developed a lot of ideas about that, but I'm still kind of testing them out and kind of making sure we're pitch perfect on the strategic approach.
Yeah, it's definitely a big market. I mean, even if we have had several customers from the US, large wallets, different protocols, it's not the same if you don't have anyone on the ground where everything is happening, right? So I do believe that, I mean, in my last episode here at the podcast, I was talking to Dom about our presence in Latin America and how important it was to having someone there, meeting all the builders and all the different builders that are working for many important protocols and companies within the crypto ecosystem. But I think the headquarters are in New York, San Francisco, all these big companies, all the C-level people are in those cities, right? So I think it's really important to have someone there and to have like a good strategy for the next couple of years, because I don't know what you think, but in my opinion, TradFi is coming to DeFi, and we are at some point where everything is gonna end up merging or finding like a good product market fit.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
No, I think it's absolutely true. I think that there's, a kind of convergence happening. And I think we've kind of seen things like this, when, electronic trading took over all of the kind of floor-based trading that was happening on Wall Street. There was this kind of, these periods, that led up to this, wholesale replacement or replatforming of Wall Street. You can see that we're speed running a lot of those past phases, and that speed running has a remarkable kind of overlap, or let's say it echoes or rhymes with what we saw, on Wall Street when when the internet became the pervasive way of trading, so the institutions are here, and they're going to, I think, kind of enter in their own way with their own priorities and their own limitations and their own strategies, which are kind of in many cases very dissimilar from what happens in DeFi. But really just taking in, the example that's being set in DeFi, the power of decentralized finance is just kind of uh, really obvious at this point in time. Um, and so, yeah, we're seeing, I think, stable coins are really just becoming this, mega trend where all the banks, at least on um, the payment side or, the neobanking side, all the banks are being disrupted by kind of these new opportunities to kind of use cash across borders and, new lending primitives and things like that. And so I think that's leading, this ability to then tackle markets that are more regimented, more difficult, like securities markets, where we're going to start seeing more and more action there. Hopefully, Clarity will help with that, and we'll get it passed.
Cool. Do you think is where the industry is going to, or is where institutions are going to? Because probably we as an industry, we are following another path, maybe, right? But I think in at some point we're gonna find like our path gonna cross, right?
No
I
doubt.
mean,
Yeah.
we have been so separated for several years with the TradFi or the traditional banking system, and nowadays we are trying to find like a product market fit for blockchain technology and all these banking applications, fintechs, neobanks. I do believe that in a couple of years, maybe mm, everyone is gonna be using blockchain or crypto under the hood by consuming these applications, but nobody will actually know that they are using this technology, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be some levels upon which people kind of realize they're doing some things that are fundamentally different. And, you have these moments where, I mean, you hear people in crypto talk about, this iPhone moment that never happened, that did happen with AI, right? Where people suddenly realized, wow, this is a whole new set of things that I can do, and I'm leaning into it. And I think crypto, there's kind of narratives that it's going to happen. It needs to happen behind the hood. And I think that's partially because of how difficult the UX has been. And I think companies like Li.Fi have really kind of solved a lot of those issues on a lot of levels, and they're still being solved. Um, but I do think that like you're going to see an easier UX, and you're going to see, this growing consciousness of like the ability to do more interesting things with your money, the ability, to kind of make better use of assets when you can make them internet native. Um, and I think those benefits start to compound, um, and that there's going to be a big uplift in just kind of new ways of using blockchain that we haven't even really had really even see we don't really see coming yet, right? So I think that's really exciting, and I think, there's parts of the market that are really regimented, and they're going to kind of use blockchain in ways that it's going to be unremarkable compared to what, we're used to in DeFi. which is a free for all, right? Regulations really enforce this kind of regimented view of how we can use these things. But nonetheless, what we're seeing in places like vault lending, RIAs doing vault lending, what we're seeing in perpetuals markets, or we're seeing traditional firms all over Wall Street take a tremendous interest in that market. What we're seeing in prediction markets, all of these things are kind of moving at an incredible rate, and I think they're just getting uplift. And so just the speed is telling how quickly these things are suddenly happening. And part of it's just because you have regulators kind of that are going to allow things to start unfolding naturally, and people know that they can work with the technology and not have such grinding risk, regulatory risk. Um, but yeah, I mean it's definitely like that Cambrian moment, and I think it's going to merge with AI and other things that help it along.
Do you see that interest at the different meetups that you attend in New York? Because I guess you have all these insights by meeting people, right? In town.
Yeah, that's where you see it. Like, I mean, people are in New York City. You go to meetups, and they can be very blue chip meetups with blue chip crypto or banking kind of environments, or they can be kind of very kind of very kind of crypto native environments. But you're kind of hearing some of the some of the same narratives kind of come out, and AI is a huge part of the conversation. People are in a state of shock and awe to see how bots are using blockchains, and how quickly you can start exercising the the power of these payment rails with bots, and how quickly you can write software that will make it more powerful to use blockchains. Like, all these things are topics that on all those kind of types of environments, like the really kind of high end crypto environments, and then the kind of builder environments. And so you can hear them. Everybody's fascinated with some of the same things. Um, but then obviously there's people that are working on much more corporate initiatives, and they may be driven less by the fascination and more by a lot of them have a lot of risk right now of being disrupted, and so you can hear that in these environments as well.
Nice. In terms of hot topics, we know that prediction market has been a hot topic for the past year. What's your take on that? Where do you see that industry going to? I mean, how popular is of course they are quite popular in this country, right?
Amazing.
But what's your point of view on that?
I think it's amazing. Like, I guess what I see happening is that you see FTC has made way for you know, companies like Kalshi and now Polymarket to go out and kind of, put up regulated entities that can put smart contracts, that can be the surface area for, peer-to-peer prediction markets. And that's never been possible. People have been wanting to do that for a long, long, long time. And now that they can do that, you're also seeing, this kind of duality between TradFi corporations. I mean, if you go on Coinbase or Gemini or in other environments, you're going to see, traditional CFTC regulated predictions markets that are, operating in parallel to these tokenized ones. You see HFT people kind of getting in between them and making markets or arbitraging between markets where, I mean, they're looking at contracts where, they have the same settlement terms, like at the end of a sports game, who won. And so you could kind of arbitrage what happens on one market and another. Um, so I think there's like this interesting layer of market structure that's happening around that. Um, and then I think there's a ton of cultural things that are happening. Like, I think on some levels it's ungovernable. There's really no precedent for thinking about, how somebody could game a market or an outcome, and thinking about, whether that's okay or not. In securities markets, we think about like insider trading, for example, where, if you use material non-public information that to trade, it comes at the expense of somebody else, and the SEC it explicitly prohibits that. Whereas in prediction markets, it almost feels like a lot of people feel like it's just truth signal, right? Like I'm signaling that even if I make a bet because I know that something is going to happen, and then I gain from that, right? Uh, it just seems to me like we don't really have a clear framework for understanding, what side of the road we should be on some of these things that come from it.
I mean, it's still a pretty young industry, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's growing really fast.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the middle of, it's controversial.
Yeah.
You saw the 60 Minutes about it. You see, Shane Copeland had a battering ram taken to his door, by the previous administration, partially probably because of, the fact that the betting markets were expecting that Trump would win, and then on the other side of it, he's got, Trump family members and administrators like on the board of his company. So it's a polarizing thing, you know. I think on some level it's kind of scary to see, so much gambling going on. But then on other levels, it brings this truth signal into the picture that you didn't have. A lot of people don't use it to bet; they use it to kind of see
What's going on in the world.
yeah, what people think, right? And kind of how the you know and what people think about things. Yeah.
Interesting. Um, in terms, Julia, in terms of your markets, because you are head of US and North America, where do you see the adoption is coming from? I mean, in terms of uh, users, because I remember you earlier mentioned to me that, for example, you were teaching your daughter about crypto and what are the different layer twos and what is blockchain. Um, so that's probably like a small picture of it, right? Because you are into crypto. But when you talk to your friends or to your family, what do they think about this industry?
It's a really interesting question because I think that, the vast majority of the public, I don't think necessarily has, a positive and well-informed view on crypto. I think a lot of people, it's very polarized, and in many ways it's right coded. Even if you're kind of a left-leaning person politically, you've in many ways kind of been lumped into a partisan question. And so that's, kind of part of the cultural backdrop of it. And I fundamentally don't see it that way. I think of it like as, a really important way for humans to kind of better organize themselves and de-risk some of the problems that we have, politically or, in terms of, kind of privacy or the internet. But in terms of kind of new users, who's in the market these days, I mean, the last year has been interesting to me because you saw a change of the guard. You saw a lot of the institutional kind of crypto native people get flushed out. And you see a kind of a lot of dejection there, I think. Um, and then I think that, you see this increasing excitement on the institutional side. People are pretty revved up about, the opportunity, that exists there. And so, there's these different camps, as it relates to LI.F.I, it strikes me as kind of amazing because the company has built this infrastructure that kind of solved, we go in these waves, right? Where this huge wave, around meme coin trading and all this explosion of fragmentation with all these different chains. And LeFi came and solved that fragmentation problem, in such a kind of leaning into the problem and solving the problem like ahead of the marketplace. And now it seems to me that, the majority of the market, the addressable market, can be served in the next wave. The addressable wallets out there have different fragmentation problems than simply, how do we get, tokens trading, on multiple chains and bridges and dexes and in a seamless way. So I think that, there's kind of a next wave that happens now to kind of catch this institutional wave and figure out how the fragmentation can be addressed in a way that really unifies the new use, kind of the new ways that the chains are being used.
So you think all these big wallets gonna face new problems for onboarding all these new wave of users? So
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that every company that's really operating in crypto right now has to be grinding to adapt their model, and they are, right? And then they're out there basically making sure that, the infrastructure that they've built continues to modernize and continues to move with, the new adoption trends. Because there's really like a really, and we see this inside LI.FI and inside the industry, it's moving fast. And people are making really, really smart things happen, not only just in DeFi now, but also in TradFi, or let's say decentralized kind of leaning TradFi firms. Um, and so every big crypto infrastructure is really, trying to solve problems, in this common design space between TradFi and crypto.
interesting. I think from the technical standpoint, we could say that interop is solved because we now can easily swap asset across multiple chains thanks to solutions like LI.FI. Um, but we are now entering a new issue, a new fragmentation, or maybe a new interop problem, which is connecting all this on-chain liquidity with the off-chain world, right? How do we make it easy to move funds between your bank account to an on-chain self-custodial wallet?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And these are fundamentally different fragmentation problems, right? It's like some of the problems are technology problems that you solve, that have been solved, right? But then a lot of them are structural problems that are kind of upstream. Like as you say, off-chain problems are not purely, associated with, the standards like protocol standards or kind of technology standards. They're, oftentimes, if you think about real world assets, you know, there are structural forms of fragmentation that extend from, these different ecosystems that are solving regulatory problems in different ways, or they're kind of solving, they're structuring tokens financially in different ways, or um, they're accomplishing compliance uh, mandates in different ways. So that form of fragmentation, I think, is the next layer. I think it's kind of extends really naturally from having solved the interop problems, natively at the technology level, the protocol level, like LeFi has.
Yeah, nice. In terms of plans for LeFi and what do you want to do in your region, can you give us just one insight or on, I mean, what do you think we need to do to conquer the region and also to be really successful? We are really successful because we have a bunch of customers, but we want to have like a strong presence, right? So what will you suggest to do over there?
Yeah.
Do we need an office?
Yeah, I just think we have to connect every wallet with every source of liquidity, um, and unify these markets, in everywhere that they are, right? And I think that includes AI, includes capital markets, it includes pure DeFi. But I think those are the same, those are different versions on the same set of problems. Like, how do we connect those things and build a network that orchestrates, the paths that people need to take to get, from where they are to the liquidity that they want, right? And I think LeFi has got this stack that is really kind of creating all of the root elements needed. And so we got to keep solving all of the problems that arise in the paths, in these different verticals, that are natural to those verticals. And I think we're going to do it.
Amazing. All right. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with us before we keep going with this conference?
Well, no, I just think it's a good vibe. It's good to be here with you and the LI.Fi team. It's good to be at ETH Denver. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about what we're doing, about crypto in general. And I just think that optimism is kind of what this is all about, and it's just in abundance. So I guess those would be my closing thoughts. Thanks,
Amazing.
thanks a lot, man.
Amazing. Well, next time, I hope we do this on the streets of New York.
Let us do that.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening to this podcast. It's been amazing having you, Julian, here. And I hope we can meet up again very soon. Thank you.